chatter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning and welcome to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Only for today, it's with me, Angela Rippon. The author L.M. Montgomery wondered what it would be like to live in a world where it was always June. Well, on this first day of the month, I welcome you to 2 hours of arts, culture, current affairs and politics. Now, under the Tories, it was stop the boats. Under Labour, it's smash the gangs. But time and time again, tough talk has failed to stop the crossings. I'm going to be discussing that with my panel this morning in just a moment as we reach yet another grim milestone. I'm going to be joined also by marine biologists to mark World Reef Day as we celebrate the beauty of our oceans, coral reefs, and also highlight how our ecosystems are under threat. There's a new book which aims to show how the RAF Bomber Command became the #1 factor in defeating Nazi Germany, rewriting the history of World War II in certain aspects. Its author, Marcus Gibson, is going to be joining me. And events are in full swing for the 250th anniversary year of novelist Jane Austen's birth. Academic Dr. Gabrielle Malcolm is going to be here to share why Austen's books still resonate with readers in the 21st century. But before all of that, let's get to your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Angela, thank you, and a very good morning to you. Just coming up to 2 minutes past 11. We start this hour with breaking news coming to us from France this morning, where celebration turned to chaos as PSG's historic Champions League triumph sparked deadly violence on the streets. We have heard that, according to the French Interior Ministry, 2 people have died following that violence and nearly 200 others injured. A 17-year-old was stabbed to death in Paris. A man was also killed after being hit by a car just hours after the final whistle. More than 500 arrests were made as riot police clashed with crowds, flares lit up the sky and cars were set ablaze. France's Interior Minister has condemned who he described as barbarians hijacking the night and calling it unbearable that joy turned to savagery. With the victory parade due today also, all eyes are now on Paris and whether the party can indeed stay peaceful. Meanwhile, Britain is bracing for a new era of threat, with £1.5 billion set aside for a new 6 weapons factories and munitions spending to triple to £6 billion. Defence Secretary John Healey says it's a clear message to Moscow and warning the UK is already under cyber attack and that, quote, the keyboard has become the weapon of war. The new cyber command will launch to counter daily assaults from hostile states like Russia and China. Long-range missiles and drones will also be built here in the UK, with 1,800 new jobs promised as part of Labour's defence overhaul. Well, the UK is throwing out disposable vapes with a nationwide ban now in force to curb youth addiction and cut plastic waste. From today, shops and supermarkets can no longer sell single-use devices, as ministers warn nearly 5 million are binned every week. Refillable and rechargeable vapes are still allowed, but in England and Wales, breaking the rules could cost retailers a £200 fine or even more for repeat offenders. The government says it is a win for kids and the climate, but critics warn the ban could fuel a black market and say tougher action still needed to stop teenagers getting hooked. A record 1,200 migrants crossed the English Channel yesterday alone. That is the highest daily total ever recorded and a 43% rise on this time last year. Sources have told us here at GB News that both UK and French patrols are being completely overwhelmed, with even fishing boats stepping in to help. Defence Secretary John Healey has described the scenes as shocking, accusing smugglers of picking people up like a taxi, while French police looked on. The Home Office, though, insists it will stop at nothing to break the smugglers' business model and protect UK borders. The government's upcoming spending review will bring unavoidably tough choices, according to the IFS. That's as cash for health and defence squeezes other budgets. Spending will no longer rise year on year, and departments like Justice and Transport could face cuts. The think tank says increasing NHS funding to reduce waiting lists could mean real terms reductions elsewhere. And it's also warning more defence money could mean bigger cuts to something else. The government insists it will scrutinise every single pound, though, to deliver on public priorities. And just before I hand you back to Angela, an update on the situation in the Middle East, where reports this morning say at least 26 people have been killed and 150 injured after Israeli tanks opened fire near an aid centre in Rafah, that in southern Gaza, according to local rescuers and the Palestinian Red Crescent. Residents say shelling happened near a humanitarian hub, but at this stage, Israeli military saying they are unaware of any injuries caused by its forces and are reviewing the incident. It, of course, comes amid that renewed Israeli offensive following the collapse of a 2-month ceasefire back in June. You're up to date just after 11 o'clock. I'll be back with you at midday. Now, though, it's over to Angela.
Thanks a lot, Sam. Now, under the Tories, it was stop the boats. Under Labour, it's smash the gangs. But time and time again, tough talk has failed to stop the crossings. With more than 1,000 migrants arriving across the English Channel in a single day yesterday, Britain faces yet another stark reminder that the crisis is far from over. So questions have to be asked now about how we, as a nation, can begin to tackle the crisis with a plethora of questions, not only moral questions of a humanitarian nature, but also questions of safety, both for those making the perilous journey and for those of us who live here in the UK. Well, a short while ago, GB News presenter Camilla Tominey spoke to the Secretary of State for Defence, John Healey, and she asked him about the scrapped Rwanda schemes. Let's just take a listen to what he said.
If Rwanda was in place now, you might not have 1,200 people arriving by dinghy yesterday.
It was a failed scheme. It was hugely expensive. It wasn't working. We scrapped it, and we've been able to use that money to clamp down on those people who should not be in this country. And so that's why you've seen since the election 30,000 people deported for this country because they have no right to be in this country. And that's at a level we haven't seen for years.
Now, I don't know if you managed to hear the whole interview. I clearly did. And what struck me was that we are now, just coming up to, it's 11 months since this government has been in power. They have been talking for most of their 14 years in opposition about immigration and how the Tories keep getting it wrong. I did not hear anything that Healey said that suggested that actually, now that they are in power and have been there almost a year, they've got any answers either. So what the heck are we going to do about this? Tom, what's your opinion on the situation that we face at the moment?
Well, the slogan in opposition from the government was to smash the gangs, and actually what they're doing is smashing all the records. And that was never going to be a credible strategy for addressing this issue. Now, John Healey there talks about redeploying resources, but the facts speak for themselves. Crossing numbers are up between sort of 30 to 40%. So without a deterrent, this is an absolute disaster. And
so what is the deterrent going to be? That's the point.
Well, what we know is that when we were in office, that the talk of the Rwanda scheme was feeding through. We were hearing back through the sort of official channels, but also you're reading about it in the media. And when you were talking to migrants, what you would hear is that people were deterred from making those crossings because of that concern about being relocated to Rwanda. And you practically need that because all the while that you haven't got a third country where you can send people that is safe, you're just going to always have a market for people to make these journeys, and the criminal gangs play into that. They market it, they put people in small boats, they take their money, they send them to sea. It is a dire trade, and I just think for those who say that we shouldn't have an approach like Rwanda, I personally just take the view that nothing could be worse than people losing their lives in the Channel, which is what we're seeing now on a very consistent basis. And
of course, what is interesting is that Germany has already suggested that, in fact, they may pick up where we left off and actually use the Rwanda scheme themselves. And Cassie, what do you both think about this?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to this particular issue of migration, you can't just manage the supply side, as Labour have tried to do, so with smashing the gangs. You also have to manage the demand side, so the people making the journey, and that's all to do with incentives. So that is, are people going to make the journey to England because they think they have a good chance of gaining asylum here and living here or not? What we do know is there was some evidence that people were going via Ireland because they didn't want to get sent to Rwanda. Australia had the exact same experience when they had the same policy years ago. And now Marco Rubio, the head of the State Department in the US, has said that's how they've reduced a lot of crossings at their southern border. It's all about incentives. You have to manage incentives. You can also tackle gangs and the unscrupulous trade, but it can't be the only way you do it.
Well, Denmark seem to have the answer to this because they have a zero policy, don't they? They do not put people into hotels, they put them into tents, they don't give them any extra money. Is that the way we should be going?
It's not the way that I want to see Britain dealing with this problem at all. I want Britain dealing with this problem in a way that is humane and decent, that involves safe routes. What should have happened in 2021 is that Boris should have done a deal with Macron to have a centre in Calais where he could process people's applications, make a decision about who's genuine, allow the people who are genuine to go across, and then for people who are economic migrants,
that would be a disaster.
Allow them to apply through the normal visa route as anyone else would.
But, yeah, Tom was saying that would be a disaster even. I mean, the fact is we already give them, what, 480 million, is it, every year to supposedly look after the borders? We've seen shots there from yesterday with the police actually standing on the beach watching those people get into their boats. Why are we giving them that money? That is not working either.
Part of that is a need, which the Labour government has agreed with France, to change French law to allow French police officers, enforcement agencies to actually go into the water and intervene, which previously French law has prevented.
They were standing watching.
Yes, because French law has prevented that. So that change is going to be made through a diplomatic route, which is what the government need to be doing. They need to be setting up these diplomatic agreements with other European countries to get this dealt with.
We'll see how successful that tactic is as well, because when you have a handful of gendarmes and a huge number of people trying to get in a small boat, they are not going to intervene in that circumstance.
No.
When you've got 80 blokes and you've got 6 or 7 gendarmes, this is just not going to happen. And the problem with the approach that you advocated is that, for example, you could have a processing centre in France. I think that actually acts as a massive pull factor for people to make other dangerous journeys that we ought to be discouraging. But also, what about those who fail? So those you don't give asylum to at that processing centre will still try and get in a small boat to come to the UK. It just won't work.
Candice, I mean, we've heard the word, I think, Tom, you used it, you both did, humanitarian. Eve mentioned it particularly. And that is the problem, isn't it? Because many of these people are fleeing from dangerous communities. They want a new life. But they are illegals. And we do see an awful lot of young men, not necessarily women with their children, with families. We are seeing people who perhaps are coming here. And surely the question is, how do we walk that line between being a humanitarian nation, which I think the Brits always have been, and the fact that many people now are thinking that there are people just really taking us for a ride and coming here because they know they're going to have an easy start in life and everything is going to be handed to them on a plate.
Yeah, look, I think we should always show a humanitarian approach, and we must always be humane whenever we deal with people, and especially people who, for whatever reason, have decided to make the crossing to come here. Some of them may be taking advantage. I mean, there's always bad actors wherever you are. Some will just be trying to start a new life. I think that ultimately the question we have to ask ourselves is, what do the British public want? And I think that the clear signal has been that it doesn't have democratic legitimacy to manage the asylum system in the way it is. People disagree with it. They think it's an open door. They don't like the costs associated with it. So the government has to respond to that and find a good, effective way of managing it.
And so what is that, Eve? I mean,
it's resourcing the system so that they're making fair decisions promptly
and
then carrying those out.
How are they going to do that?
Employ people to make those decisions and to make that system work effectively.
One of the
problems that people have that frustrates people is people are living in hotels or accommodation paid for a long time. Why is that happening? Because it's taken a very long time to make decisions.
But that does nothing about the flow, does it? The flow of people coming via these crossings is completely unsustainable. Illegal migration is unfair, and I really worry about the fact that we're just losing the consent of the public around all immigration. So people who come here legally and who play by the rules are beginning to be perceived in exactly the same way as people making those crossings. That's just not right. And we have got that massive generosity of spirit as a country. but you have to have managed migration, and people who come here need to come through established routes. So, for example, the approach that we took going right back to David Cameron was around people coming directly from the refugee camps, working with the UNHCR, supporting the most vulnerable people. That's the right way to support people, not people turning up in small boats on our
which
beaches.
is safe routes. But at the moment, we have a system where if you want to claim asylum in the UK, you have to arrive to do that. You need to have safe routes where people aren't making these crossings to do that and manage the system that way. It's much fairer for the British people because we actually know who's coming in.
But we do seem to have an awful lot of people wanting to come here. We are a tiny island, and I think the sort of success that Reform is having at the moment demonstrates the fact that people, the majority, quite a large group of the British public are now saying, actually, Reform have got the right idea. And therefore, neither the Conservatives nor the Labour Party seem to have come up with the right answers.
I think that's a bigger picture about our foreign policy, frankly.
Well,
because
it probably is.
The number of people who are eligible for refugee status in the world is really high. I mean, an example, there's a country that a lot of people are coming from at the moment. That country is Sudan. We're about to do a trade deal with the UAE that is funding Sudan's civil war. What a surprise. These things don't add up, and we need to have a more holistic approach to our foreign policy to create a world where there are fewer people who are refugees in the first place.
Very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's the defining issue right now, and I think both Labour and Conservatives have sadly lost the trust of the public on the issue. This is why you're seeing the rise of Reform. It's not just here, it's all over Europe, it's in America as well.
Indeed. We're not just the people on the receiving end of this problem at the moment, are we? Panel, thank you very much indeed. That's Candice Holsworth, Eve McQuillan and Tom Pursglove. They're going to be returning at noon to discuss President Trump's second term so far. It's been quite a noisy one, hasn't it? Well, time is running out on your chance to win your biggest Great British giveaway to date. It's your chance to drive away with a brand new motorhome, which is worth no less than £67,000. And here's the details that you're going to need to get it.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet.
Driving away in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. It has plenty of room for your family of four, comes complete with kitchen, bathroom and all the space you'll need for life on the road. And the best news? You can drive it on your existing driving licence. Plus, we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Don't delay. You can't win if you're not in the draw. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This motorhome and £5,000 in cash really could be yours. Good luck.
Now, coming up today is World Reef Day. Bet you didn't know that. I'm going to be joined by one of marine biologists who is an expert in this field to celebrate the beauty of our oceans, our coral reefs, but also to highlight how our ecosystems are under threat. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, but today with me, Angela Rippon.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. This weekend with me, Angela Rippon. And happy World Reef Day to you. It's the day that is marked by the United Nations on the 1st of June every single year. And the day aims to highlight just how fragile our oceans' coral reefs are. And it hopes to bring together environmentalists and social activists to work together to protect these rather beautiful ecosystems from deteriorating. And there's no question they really are under threat at the moment, particularly from environmental changes and also from pollution in the sea. Well, I'm joined now by Marco Fusi, who is our wonderful guest. He is joining me from the university in the north. Now, Marco, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Is he not there? We've got no Marco. Well, I'm hoping that we will get him in a moment because the whole point about these beautiful ecosystems is what here we have. I mean, anybody who is a diver who has ever been to Australia, off the wonderful reefs that they have off the east coast there particularly, or to the Red Sea, to so many of these amazing ecosystems that there are in the world, divers will tell you that the colours are stunning. The fish that inhabit them are absolutely wonderful, absolutely fantastic. And I'm delighted to say that Marco is actually joining us now live. Good morning to you, Marco. Thank you so very much indeed for joining us. We were just looking there at some wonderful pictures of reefs at their best, but they are all under threat at the moment, aren't they? So just tell me how important it is that we have a World Reef Day.
Hi, Angela. Good morning. Yes, so these fantastic images give an idea of how diverse and how stunning are these ecosystems. So just imagine that the coral reef just occupy a small percentage in our coast, but they host more than 70%, 80% of all the biodiversity in marine system. And up to date, there is a new species that has been described every day of fishes, of crustacea, invertebrates, bacteria, even fungi. And unfortunately, as you said, the importance of these days to remind the importance of the ecosystem and all the threats they are undergoing, like climate change with the temperature rise, coastal development, and unfortunately also the unsustainable use of many coastline. For example, if you consider coral reef in our tropics, usually coral reef are well established within a larger complexity of ecosystem like mangrove, seagrasses. And even the degradation of these other ecosystems cause a massive stress on coral reef. Up to date, since 1950, more than half of coral reefs has been damaged or deteriorated in our planet.
Marco, I think, you know, it's lovely to look at film of it, but an awful lot of us never get to see these things for real because we don't go diving. So just explain why they are so important. I mean, are we getting to the point where we just are underestimating the importance of life in our oceans? I want to talk to you about all the netting and all of the, not just environmental things that are happening to the sea, but the fact that we tend to use the oceans of the world as a dumping ground. But, I mean, if we do lose our coral reefs, what is that going to do to the ecosystem of everything that is going on under the waves?
So let's say that the coral reef are very important because they sustain the livelihood of many populations on the coast. There are populations that rely on fisheries, totally relying on fisheries of coral reef. However, there is an overfishing problems that affect many corals all around the world. So a better approach, a more sustainable approach to coral reef, perhaps establishing more marine protected areas, can help to save these corals, but most importantly, to give the opportunity of people that live on corals can continue to survive on them, have a fishery supply, but also don't forget that also coral reef are important for tourism and recreational tourism. Many islands in the Pacific, in the Indian Ocean, relying on the tourism that and the tourists that have been attracted by these wonders in the
exactly. Marco, we're looking at the moment at some really quite appalling footage that shows the sort of plastics that are dumped in the sea, the kind of damage that we are doing to the sea by just taking the oceans of the world for granted and treating them like a mass dumping ground. I mean, there's a thing called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which, as you will know, is a massive, I mean, it is such a huge, it's an island of plastic which is floating in the Pacific. And I understand that it is 3 times the size of France. That is how big this plastic island is. Do we just take our oceans for granted? And what can we possibly do to prevent that kind of environmental damage?
Yeah, the problem of the plastic in particular is that the plastic shatter and become very, 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 very little. So, for example, coral can, by ingesting the particles that accumulate this plastic on their bodies, and all the accumulations is then a threat for many other organisms. So what we need to do is that we need to have a more sustainable use of plastic. And we have many now technologies that can allow us to do this and change our habits. Instead of using plastic, use biodegradable materials and other solutions that can help to reduce the dump in the ocean of this kind of material.
And a day like today helps us to focus our minds on that, doesn't it?
I hope it helps to give this sense of urge to how to approach ourselves with the sea and this ecosystem.
Marco, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Newcastle University, where he is a marine biologist. Thank you so much for joining us. Actually, on the whole point of better use for plastics, by chance, I'm actually wearing a pair of shoes today that are made out of recycled plastic bottles. So I'm doing my bit for World Reef Day. Now, coming up, there's a new book which aims to show how the RAF Bomber Command became the #1 factor in defeating Nazi Germany. That's next here on Sunday with Michael Portillo, with me, Angela Rippon.
Hello and welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's a showery start to meteorological summer, drier on Monday and then turning wet and windy later. So looking at the bigger picture, we have this area of low pressure situated towards the north, quite breezy as well, with a bit of a squeeze in the isobars and frontal systems moving through. So best of the fine and dry weather across the southeast today. Elsewhere, it is going to be a mixture of sunny spells, scattered showers, longer spells of rain clearing its way eastwards across Scotland, followed by further showers behind. Otherwise, breezy out there, but the strongest winds really confined to northwestern Scotland, so feeling cool here. Otherwise, highs of up to 20 to 22 in the southeast. Now, as we go through a Sunday evening, further showers. Some of these could be heavy, especially across north and eastern parts of Scotland, with longer spells of rain across the north and accompanied by some strong winds. Across Northern Ireland, a similar picture, some late evening spells of sunshine, but mixed with showers. Across much of England and Wales, though, largely fine and dry to end Sunday. Just a few showers around. So as we go through Sunday evening and overnight, we have some spells of rain across the north and west of Scotland, but with the ridge of higher pressure moving in, most of the showers will start easing, so turning a lot drier with lengthy clear skies as we go overnight and lighter winds. So it could turn chilly in some spots, especially across the north where we could see a touch of frost, otherwise milder in the south. So as we start Monday, many places waking up to a fine and dry day. We'll see a few showers bubbling up, mostly across East Anglia, and then the sunshine turning hazy out towards the west, across Northern Ireland and Scotland, accompanied by a brisker wind before the area of low pressure arrives. So again, cooler here, but in the sunshine and lighter winds, feeling pleasant.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. A new book aims to take on a key part of the history of World War II. Marcus Gibson argues in his book here, The Greatest Force, that RAF Bomber Command campaign, particularly what they did in Dresden, was not ineffective, costly and even a war crime, but instead actually played an essential role in the ultimate defeat of the Nazi regime. Drawing on British, American and German archives, Marcus Gibson hopes to reveal the full spectrum of RAF Bomber Command's achievements. And he joins me now to discuss it. Marcus, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I think that because your book really deals particularly with the opinions that have been written about and voiced, where Dresden in particular is concerned, the adjectives that have always been used have been pretty dramatic, haven't they? That it was a gigantic failure, a war crime, and even Bomber Harris, who was in charge, has been vilified over the years. In your introduction, I'm going to quote, you say you hope to restore the reputation of RAF Bomber Command, because not just universally, but particularly to the British people. And yet each of the, 370 books that have been written about World War II mentioning Dresden actually have an entirely different outcome from the one that you have come with. How can we believe that you are now writing that actually much of what has been written about Dresden is untrue?
Well, if you go into the German sources, in the German archives, they are very clear that Dresden was, in fact, a very minor raid in many ways, and that almost all of what you've heard about Dresden in the past is, in fact, quite untrue. First and foremost, there were very few refugees in Dresden, not the 300,000 that some British historians claim. The reason for that was that the Russians were only 60 kilometres away, and those refugees that did manage to make it to the city got onto trains and they left as fast as they could. There was also no food in the city for them either. So the idea that it was stuffed with refugees is not true.
I mean, we should make it clear that for those who are perhaps not familiar with this section of World War II history, that Dresden has always been seen as a war crime, because I think there's been claims of, 200,000 people having been killed in the city. You are saying that this is not true.
No. The latest probable figure is around 10,000, which may seem high to some people. But Warsaw, the death toll there was 250,000, Leningrad more than 1 million, and just up the road is the city of Breslau, which was surrounded by Russian Soviet artillery, and between 30,000 and 80,000 were killed. So a bombing raid in some ways, Dresden got off lightly during the war.
I mean, you do quote a guy called Ken Oakley, who was an RAF navigator, and he was in one of the aircraft that were the sort of spotter planes that went beforehand. And he, at the time, recorded that the streets were virtually empty. So I'm having read chunks of your book. Are we right in saying then that a great deal of the opinion about what supposedly happened in Dresden was nothing more than propaganda on behalf mainly of Goebbels, who was actually trying to paint in February of 1945, which is when the attack on Dresden happened, painting the Nazis as victims?
Absolutely, yes. He claimed, days after the raid, that 200,000 people had died in the firestorm, and this was almost completely accepted by the Allies, including Bomber Command itself.
So nobody checked him?
No.
Why not?
Well, they just thought it was because we created a firestorm in the city, as we had done in Hamburg 2 years earlier, that in fact it was quite likely that 200,000 people had died. And it was known that there were not that many air raid shelters, and we did believe them. We had no reason not to believe them, that the city wasn't full of refugees.
And also, was there a problem that Dresden then became part of Germany that was then under Russian control, and it was actually very difficult to get in to check things?
That's right. And of course, the Soviets then used the raid after the war to show how callous the Western Allies had been. Again, so the propaganda stream continued.
So, you've said that what you want to do is restore the reputation of the RAF Bomber Command. What then, in your book, as you see it, is the true story of what happened in Dresden, and why?
RAF Bomber Command is primarily criticised for not concentrating on a small number of high-priority targets, like assembly plants for aircraft and ships and tanks. Marshal Harris, the commander of Bomber Command, people will know, he was absolutely right in bombing German cities, not only because it destroyed German administration and government and trains and prisons and the phone system and all of that. It primarily because it crucially destroyed the small factories. German metalworking has been going for 500 years in the Cologne-Rhineland area. They even produced suits of armour for Henry VIII, by the way. What's interesting was that those small workshops were the origin of the supply chain for all the small parts, components and the spares for all of Germany's weaponry. So that when they cut that off, or largely cut it off, that's what then stymied the production of the big bits, the big tanks and aircraft.
Yeah. And in fact, the Russians actually accepted this themselves, didn't they? That because of what Bomber Command had done, not just British, but American Air Force as well,
yes, that
they had cut off the supplies, as it were.
Yes. There are two other things, many other factors. First of all, because Harris attacked all the many cities across the length and breadth of Germany and Austria and France, of course, Italy, he forced the Germans into creating not a small defence system around a few factories, but a gigantic nationwide system, so that 2 million men were not going into the factories or the armed forces. They were there to man the aircraft guns and to clear up the rubble.
You feel very strongly about this, don't you? Which is, you're a historian. Yes. You've never written about this before, I don't think.
No.
So, you must be very passionate about, as you say in the introduction, about just reinstating the fact that Bomber Command were not committing war crimes. They were actually helping to win the war. And you do feel passionately personal
Well, I
about
do,
this, don't
because,
you?
I classify myself as a very average research journalist. I can't really say I'm a historian who spends, his life in archives as they do, and rightly so. But there is clearly a monstrous injustice which any average journalist looking at the facts can conclude.
So what are you hoping that people will take away from your book, The Greatest Force?
I have a prediction that in future, one generation will finally realise just how the fact that Air Marshal Harris was the #1 commander who wrought more destruction on Germany than any other Allied commander, Russians included, and that we will build a column as high as Nelson's column in his honour. That might sound fantastic, but once they realise just what his achievement was, that might happen.
But, I mean, we already have that wonderful tribute to Bomber Command I always think of it as being in Piccadilly in London, haven't we?
Yes.
That wonderful statue. But there are very few members of Bomber Command still alive. In fact, I don't think there are any anymore now. But the descendants of them, the sons, the daughters, the grandchildren of them, they must be delighted to think that perhaps the things that their grandparents did in the war will finally be recognised and not vilified.
Yes. Well, in the 3 days after the book was published, I got about half a dozen or more of the relatives and the sons of Bomber Command pilots saying thank you for correcting the story. And so it's been very, very pleasing.
And it's been a terrific, it's been a passion of yours to write the book too, hasn't it? So
thank you very much, yes.
Thank you, Marcus, very much indeed. That's Marcus Gibson, and his book is called The Greatest Force. Well, it's now time for our GB News Daily Reflection.
The GB News Daily Reflection.
Hello, my name is Marjorie, and I'm a Baptist minister in a city centre church in Sheffield. Our theme this week is all about waiting. Often we don't like waiting. I grew up in Dublin and the bus system was terrible. I have memories of waiting and waiting for the bus that would never come. Maybe it would come and maybe it wouldn't. There is a good waiting and there is very difficult waiting in life. We love the sense of anticipation in the run-up to Christmas or a birthday, and then it's not the same when it is all over. It is a good anticipation. Waiting for exam results or for the telephone to ring with medical results is very different. The difference being any sense of waiting where we do not know the outcome or we fear the result fills us with fear and anxiety. What if? Most fear in life has its roots in the unknown and the waiting, the what ifs. In a world of ever-changing events and environments, the Bible shows us how to be faithful, not fearful, and instead of being downcast, how to lift our heads. In 1 Peter chapter 4 in the Bible, Peter, who was one of Jesus' closest friends, who witnessed the resurrection, tells us how we should wait this side of history. We are to keep close to God in prayer. We are to keep perspective. Let love be our goal, and may we practice forgiveness. May we serve one another and show mercy as has been shown to us. And these truths remain true today.
Still to come on the programme, this year is the 250th anniversary of Jane Austen's birth. But what is the enduring pull of this novelist and her works today? I'm going to be joined by one expert who will explain. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, but for today it's with me, Angela Rippon, only on GB News. But before that, if you are in search of some holiday sun, well, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, there's plenty of hot sunshine across most of the Mediterranean, but there are some thunderstorms in places, particularly in southern France. Across the Canary Islands and Madeira, though, there'll be this brisk northerly flow on Monday, bringing in quite a bit of cloud, but sunshine for southern parts of Spain. Here are those thunderstorms across the Alps, southern parts of France, but most of Italy, the Balkans and Greece and Turkey having plenty of hot sunshine and temperatures into the high 20s, and the outlook is for plenty more dry and settled weather.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns this Tuesday from 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Only, no, you're not seeing things. It's with me, Angela Rippon, for today. Now, a new TV series released to mark the 250th anniversary of the birth of novelist Jane Austen has inspired conversation about the writer and her works yet again. Now, the team behind the new drama The Other Bennet Sister, which is actually about Mary Bennet and not her famous sister Elizabeth from Pride and Prejudice, says that the drama will not feature posh accents. Well, aside from that specific series, why does Jane Austen's work still managed to capture the imagination of readers all over the world today? Well, I'm joined now by Dr. Gabrielle Malcolm. She's a writer and editor and a creative director of Strictly Jane Austen Tours in Bath. Thank you so much for joining us, Gabrielle. Look,
thank you very much.
What is it about? I mean, I have to. I'm a fan. I love her books, I have to admit. But what is it about Jane Austen that has created this one-woman juggernaut of books, television, film, radio, all around the world for the last 100 years?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's something that I have spent my writing career looking into. And the results of the way that I see it is that she understood readers and she understood her audiences at the time, and with an eye to the future, with this enduring appeal that she offers, because she's funny and she doesn't kind of overreach with her cast of characters. She sticks to a good solid range of characters, and she's really able to kind of dig deep into what makes people tick and pulling together all those social types, because we all know an Aunt Norris or a Mrs. Bennet or a Mr. Bennet.
I mean, I think the extraordinary thing is, though, bearing in mind what you've just said, is that she was writing in the late 1800s. I mean, we're talking about, you know, a Victorian young woman. And
well, she was actually writing in the Regency. I'll correct you there,
Regency. My apologies.
Yes.
Yes, of course, she was writing 1700s, late 1700s, early 1800s.
That's right.
And very few women were writing at all. It was mostly men. But she was writing in a way that was so unusual for everybody else. I mean, she was writing with a wonderful ear for dialogue. She's very witty. She's quite sarcastic. She's very ironic in a great deal of what she says. What it suggests about her as a woman of, as you say, the Regency period of the 1700s is a woman of incredible intellect, almost a woman from the 18th century who could be a 21st century writer.
Absolutely. I mean, she was kind of nurtured in that 18th century satirical tradition of Jonathan Swift, of Samuel Johnson. I mean, she was an avid reader and student of the novelists before her, of her contemporaries. She was a huge supporter of other female writers of the time. Like you say, it was still relatively unusual, relatively rare for women to be writing under their own names. You know, they would use pen names, they would have to use a married name. You know, it wasn't an easy time to be a woman in publishing when she began her career. So, yeah, she was very much nurtured by her extremely forward-thinking father, the Reverend George Austen. He supported her education, and he enabled her access to the library that he built at their home in Steventon at the vicarage. So she was very much conversant in all the different strands of writing: fiction, biography, history, poetry, satire, as well as the theatre. She loved the theatre, and they used to mount amateur theatricals when she was a child. So her older brothers and sister would, you know, they'd all stage plays at home.
Yeah.
So she had, like you say, that wit, that great ear for dialogue and character, and she just reinvented the novel effectively. She brought all those things to bear.
I wonder how she would have reacted to the BBC version, and we have to talk about it because you have written the book, which is There's Something About Darcy, about Colin Firth emerging with, what was it, in 1995? I think? Yes, 1995, emerging from the pool with the shirt to his attached to his body because he'd been swimming. I mean, was that a sexy image or what? But she never actually intended that in any of her books, did she?
No, but you're quite right. She would never be explicit in that way. But she understood the undercurrent of sexiness because she had read the sexy, raunchy novels of the 18th century.
Of course,
because that was a time which they could be much more explicit. I mean, it would make your hair stand on end, Angela, some of the things they wrote about. And Austen knew about that, and she understood how to insert that idea of both the kind of romantic and the potentially kind of, sensual into her work, because that is her great gift, her subtlety.
Yeah, I must admit, I do love her books, and I do wonder, having the way you've described her father, whether or not Mr. Bennet, who is one of my favourite characters in all of her books, Mr. Bennet, Elizabeth's father, was actually based on him. And of course, as well as the teleseries coming out, as we've just mentioned, about the other sister, there's a new statue going to be unveiled to her in Alton, in where she was living, on the 21st of June. And so there will be even more material about Jane Austen. So, Gabrielle, thank you so much indeed. Thank you so much indeed for joining us today and giving us a bit more insight into her. Right, we've just come to the end of the first hour of Sunday with Michael Portillo, but with me, Angela Rippon, today. But there's still lots more to come on the show. My panel will return to discuss Trump's second term thus far. Plus, this week was National Eisteddfod, the youth festival celebrating the Welsh language and culture. And I'm going to be reflecting on the importance of Welsh history. That's all coming up on the programme, so please do stay with me. I'll see you in a moment.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed home battery storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's a showery start to meteorological summer, drier on Monday and then turning wet and windy later. So looking at the bigger picture, we have this area of low pressure situated towards the north, quite breezy as well, with a bit of a squeeze in the isobars and frontal systems moving through. So best of the fine and dry weather across the southeast today. Elsewhere, it is going to be a mixture of sunny spells, scattered showers, longer spells of rain clearing its way eastwards across Scotland, followed by further showers behind. Otherwise, breezy out there, but the strongest winds really confined to northwestern Scotland, so feeling cool here. Otherwise, highs of up to 20 to 22 in the southeast. Now, as we go through a Sunday evening, further showers. Some of these could be heavy, especially across north and eastern parts of Scotland, with longer spells of rain across the north and accompanied by some strong winds. Across Northern Ireland, a similar picture, some late evening spells of sunshine, but mixed with showers. Across much of England and Wales, though, largely fine and dry to end Sunday. Just a few showers around. So as we go through Sunday evening and overnight, we have some spells of rain across the north and west of Scotland, but with the ridge of higher pressure moving in, most of the showers will start easing, so turning a lot drier with lengthy clear skies as we go overnight and lighter winds. So it could turn chilly in some spots, especially across the north, where we could see a touch of frost, otherwise milder in the south. So as we start Monday, many places waking up to a fine and dry day. We'll see a few showers bubbling up, mostly across East Anglia, and then the sunshine turning hazy out towards the west, across Northern Ireland and Scotland, accompanied by a brisker wind before the area of low pressure arrives. So again, cooler here, but in the sunshine and lighter winds, feeling pleasant.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet, touring in this stylish Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. This brand new 2025 model comes complete with kitchen and bathroom areas and enough space to comfortably sleep a family of four. We'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to add a few of your favourite things. Don't miss out as lines close on the 6th of June. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. Now, John Steinbeck wrote, in early June, the world of leaf and blade and flowers explodes, and every sunset is different. Well, I welcome you to the second hour of Sunday with Michael Portillo on this, the 1st of June, but with me, Angela Rippon, this week. I'm going to be discussing all the fallout from Donald Trump's past 132 days of presidency with my wonderful panel here in the studio. Now, yesterday, the youth festival celebrating the Welsh language and culture, the National Eisteddfod, came to an end. Historian Martin Whittock will be joining me to reflect on the importance of Welsh cultural history. 2 NHS health boards in Scotland have begun trialling the early detection of cancer and head trauma using AI. We're going to be hearing from GB News reporter Tony Maguire on that, and also get reaction from pharmacist Dr. Layla Hanbeck on the disposable vapes ban that comes into force today. Tomorrow marks the start of British Tomato Fortnight, where we're going to be championing great British growers and some of the recipes that showcase tomatoes in all their glory. But first, your latest news headlines now from Sam Francis.
Angela, thank you, and a very good afternoon to you. 2 minutes past midday. The top story, while celebration turned to chaos in France last night as PSG's historic Champions League triumph sparked deadly violence on the streets. According to the French Interior Ministry, 2 people have died, nearly 200 people injured, including, we now know, 9 police officers out of that total of 192 members of the public injured following those chaotic scenes in Paris. A 17-year-old among those to have died after a stabbing in Paris, and a man was also killed after being hit by a car just hours after the final whistle. More than 500 arrests have also been made as riot police clashed with crowds, flares lit up the sky, and cars were also set ablaze. France's Interior Minister has condemned the barbarians who he says hijacked the night, calling it unbearable that joy turned turned to savagery. Well, with a victory parade due today, all eyes are, of course, on scenes in Paris, whether that party can indeed stay peaceful. Police saying they will be increasing their presence on the Paris streets today ahead of those celebrations. Britain is bracing for a new era of threat, with £1.5 billion set aside for 6 new weapons factories and munitions spending to triple to £6 billion. Defence Secretary John Healey says it's a clear message to Moscow, warning the UK is already under cyber attack and that the keyboard has become the weapon of war. A new cyber command will also launch to counter daily assaults from hostile states like Russia and China. And long-range missiles and drones will be built here in the UK, with 1,800 new jobs promised as part of that defence overhaul by the Labour government. Well, here's what John Healey, Defence Secretary, told the Camilla Tominey show here on GB News this morning.
The keyboard has become a weapon of war, and it's one of the reasons that in the last couple of days I've made the commitment that we'll put £1 billion into the digital upgrade of our armed forces so that we can link AI, autonomy and drones to the hard metal of tanks and artillery and planes. But also we'll establish a new cyber command to try and deal with these threats.
The UK is throwing out disposable vapes with a nationwide ban now in force to curb youth addiction and cut plastic waste. From today, shops and supermarkets can no longer sell single-use devices, as ministers warn nearly 5 million are binned every single week. Refillable and rechargeable vapes are still allowed, but in England and Wales, breaking the rules could cost retailers a £200 fine. The government says it's a win for kids and the climate, but critics warn the ban could fuel a black market and say tougher action is still needed to stop teenagers from getting hooked. GB News can confirm a record 1,194 migrants crossed the English Channel on Saturday. That is the highest number in a single day so far this year. It brings the total for 2025 to nearly 15,000 people, a 42% rise compared to this time last year. Sources suggest both UK and French patrols are being completely overwhelmed, with even fishing boats having to step in to help. The Defence Secretary John Healey has called it shocking, saying smugglers are picking people up like a taxi. He also criticised French police for failing to stop boats launching in shallow waters. The Home Office, though, says it will stop at nothing to break the smugglers' business model. Calls to armed prison officers are growing after a series of violent attacks behind bars. Robert Jenrick says staff should have access to lethal weapons, tasers and stun grenades to tackle dangerous inmates and Islamist extremists. He's warning of a growing risk that officers could be kidnapped or even killed without urgent reform. It follows a string of assaults, including the Manchester Arena bomber attacking staff with boiling oil. The government trial of tasers for specialist officers is due to begin in some prisons this summer. And an update on the death toll in Rafah this morning. We are hearing reports it has now risen to 31 after Israeli tanks reportedly opened fire near an aid distribution centre. That, according to local rescuers and the Palestinian Red Crescent. More than 200 people are also believed to have been taken to hospital, many with serious injuries. But the Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation says those reports are false and fabricated, claiming aid was distributed without incident. The IDF also says it's unaware of any civilian casualties. Meanwhile, Israeli forces say they've eliminated dozens of terrorists and destroyed 100 Hamas targets in nearby Khan Yunis. That's it from me for now. I'll be back with you in around 30 minutes time. Now, though, let's head back to Angela.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks so much, Sam, for the news. Now, US President Donald Trump has been in office for 132 days, and in that time, he has caused quite a stir. A bit more than that, actually. A few days ago, a court accused the US president of overstepping his authority after utilising emergency powers to enforce his tariffs. Well, the president claimed that the matter was a national emergency, But he did not get approval for it from Congress. This week, US Senator Bernie Sanders, who's here in Britain, said Trump is not popular in the United States and voters are increasingly disturbed by the direction in which Trump is taking the country. Political commentator Ezra Klein has said Trump is acting like a king because he's too weak to govern like a president. Well, with all of that and so much more going on, not to mention accusations of corruption, anti-Trump demonstrations have shown just how people are now reacting to the Trump presidency. But what are the implications of this, not just for the US, who have got to deal with the fact that he's going to be there for another 3.5 years, but for the world in general and the UK in particular, when you consider that the language now being used about him and the things being said about him is unlike that being used to describe any president ever in the history of the United States. He is truly one of a kind. Well, with me now to discuss this is my wonderful panel of journalist and writer Candice Holdsworth, political commentator Eve McQuillan, and the former Conservative MP Tom Pursglove. Well, clearly America's got to come to terms with the fact that he's going to be there for 3.5 years and deal with it. And we've seen increasingly massive demonstrations against Trump. But you know, they've got to deal with that. But what are the ramifications of his sometimes increasingly bizarre behaviour likely to have on the world in general and Britain in particular, Tom?
Well, I think in a way, and this is, of course, unprecedented. We've never seen a presidency like this. No. I do think, actually, that Trump, too, is more organised and sort of setting a course on a mission that he wanted to go through relative to that first presidency, where there was a sort of learning that came inevitably with that, and experience counts for something. But there are challenges and opportunities, aren't there? I think one of the big opportunities with this presidency is the fact that he is unpredictable. And so that does tend to have the effect of getting people around the table. So in the early days of the presidency, what we saw, for example, is some of those hostages, which had been incredibly difficult to see them released. Progress was made on that. I think it's been good that, for example, he's been able to try and encourage greater dialogue when it comes to the situation in Ukraine. Still a long way to go, and peace looks a very long way away. But there are opportunities as well as challenges. But things like, for example, the approach to tariffs has not been a good thing for those of us who believe in the principle of free trade, and has clearly had an economic impact here at home. You mentioned Uganda. I mean, just let's take a look at what's happening in the world at the moment. We have the rise of China, and they are certainly becoming, you know, quite vocal in their part of the world. We've got what is happening, certainly, in Ukraine. Putin, I think everybody has come to recognise, even perhaps Trump himself, that Putin has had him on the end of quite a long string, hasn't he? Tapping him along, I think was the phrase he used. Tapping him along. We've got the rise of the right in Europe. There's so many things happening within the world. And what did he do? He sacked the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, along with 5 admirals and generals, not because they were useless at what they do, but because they disagreed with him. Now, Eve, where is that going to put us in terms of European defence? I mean, we've just heard there that we're going to have to start building factories because we've finally come to the decision in this country that actually we do need to protect our borders.
I mean, I think he's completely unpredictable, and I like your optimism, but I don't share it, particularly with the impacts on our economy, which I'm sure we'll go into in a bit. In the interest of defence, Trump is clearly not committed to a Western order. He's committed to America first. That's what he wants to get back to. He's hitting European countries hard with his tariffs as well, and he does not share the same commitment to a NATO defence pact as other American leaders have in the past. That is the reality that Britain is now having to grapple with, and that is a difficult reality, which Starmer, to his credit, I think is trying his best to carve out that middleman position between Trump and the rest of Europe, but that is very hard.
Has he sort of woken us up to the fact that we cannot depend on America anymore? Because, as you say, there is no way of knowing what this man is going to say or do next.
Yeah, I think so. But then we're in a system which is structured around a history of depending on America. So changing that takes a long while. It's difficult, and there's a need to manage Trump. And this is a man who thrives on drama in the limelight. And there is a real need to manage him behind the scenes quietly to try and get the best deal for Britain out of it. But that is very difficult.
I mean, you're talking as if he's someone that you can actually sort of discuss things with and get a sensible answer out of him. But I think many people, I think, Candice, are seriously worried. And I know you have a dog in this fight with the way that he behaves. I think one of those quotes, he's behaving like a king because he doesn't have he's too weak to behave like a president. The way that he actually deals diplomatically with other people from around the world, particularly, we all saw what he did with to Zelensky in the White House, what he's subsequently done with the president of South Africa. He seems to have no concept of statesmanship behaviour, even not bothering whether he's telling lies or the truth.
That was fascinating to watch that press conference with Cyril Ramaphosa. I mean, obviously, I have a strong connection to South Africa. I lived there for 11 years. From what I know, the South Africans went in very prepared for that, not wanting it to be a repeat of what happened with Zelensky. And you could see they tried very hard to keep the temperature down, which was, I think, an achievement of statecraft on their part. I think the whole world, South Africa included, which is an ally of America, Britain too, were all adjusting to this new world order where America is aggressively asserting its interests, and it doesn't hold back from chiding those that have always been seen as partners and allies and getting what it wants from them. And it is placing huge pressure on South Africa because the Cape of Good Hope is a global choke point, and America's now taking an increasingly adversarial approach to China, and that Cape of Good Hope sits between the Atlantic and the Pacific. There's huge pressure in the Suez, so that becomes an important point in global trade. I think that we all have to adjust to this new world order, but I think we should also protect our interests as well. And I think that whenever we're dealing with Trump, whatever country is dealing with Trump, I think that what's most important is looking after what's good for us and getting it.
What do we think, though, about the fact that he openly is corrupt? Yeah. I mean, we have to use that word, particularly with the Bitcoin that he's produced. That here we have a president who is prepared to use the presidency, the role of presidency, for the financial benefit of himself and his own family. Yeah.
Well, I worry a lot about the straying of the constitutional norms and democratic values, which are really important to all of us in Western societies. And I think people do want to see those guardrails that are built into the systems have the effect that they're designed to have. So that stuff does worry me, and the kind of straying into business interests should be something that is debated, and you would hope that senior US politicians will be standing up and raising those concerns and making it.
Where are they?
Well, yeah, it does feel a little bit like people have vacated the pitch in that sense. And I worry about how actually, not just in the US, but in the UK, for example, the way in which some of our politics is moving in a direction that is not helpful. Often issues are being sanitised to such an extent that it's almost clickbait coverage. What we actually need to focus is quality debate, unpacking complexities, and not just focusing on the soundbite. And I think certainly in the US, that is something that feels at the moment that is very prominent within the way the discourse is being conducted.
There is a word for it. They're using it in America. They're calling it Trumpism, the growth of the right wing and extremist policies. He is having an effect, isn't he, on the way that many politicians in Europe are now thinking and behaving.
Well, when you think, for example, on defence spending, that has moved the debate along enormously. And various governments under both sides have ducked that question going right back to Obama's time. We're now actually seeing that increase in defence spending, not just in this country, but abroad as well. I think that's a positive contribution, actually, to the global
maybe. But, I mean, the other side of it is, as we say, if Trumpism is a move to the right, that surely is not good for Europe.
No. Yeah, I do think, though, that is a good point. Like, certain issues that Trump has raised have moved things on. And maybe perhaps, you know, in many ways, this new America is very uncomfortable in some ways. But perhaps it did need to assert itself as the leading democratic power. Because look what's happened. We've seen the rise of dictatorial regimes all over the world, completely unchecked.
But Trump is acting in a dictatorial way, unfortunately. We've seen Trump has used executive orders, used them 157 times in his first 100 days. That's more than any other president ever. J.D. Vance is making all sorts of comments undermining the American judicial system. And there are now protests in the US because Trump is planning a military parade for his birthday. This is, ridiculous cult of personality type behaviour, and it needs to be checked.
And let's bring it back to a rather more mundane level. The number of people I meet now who say they don't want to go to America on holiday. Yeah. Are people genuinely worried, do you think, about setting foot in that country?
I think so, because of the way that people have been treated through the American border system in completely arbitrary ways. And there have been British citizens who've been treated very badly, and there seems to be no protection for people against that.
Well, I am waiting for rather more people other than Bernie Sanders to start being public about this in America because, as I say, I did see something online where an activist was saying, where are the leaders? Where not just Republicans or Democrats, not just Democrats, but Republicans as well, who are prepared to say that actually Trump is taking us in a direction that we don't want to go, as Bernie Sanders was saying. Panel, thank you very much indeed. That was Candice Holdworth, Eve McQuillan and Tom Pursglove. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. Coming up yesterday, the youth festival celebrating the Welsh language and culture, the Youth National Eisteddfod, came to an end. So historian Martin Whittock is going to join me here to reflect on the importance of Welsh history. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, but today with me, Angela Rippon, here on GB News.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
We have a very special guest, Rubens, who is the veterans mascot. He represents animals who fought and fallen in the war, and he's here with his owners, Mark and Debbie Perkins, and I've just given him a couple of treats. He's a special boy, isn't he?
Oh, thank you. Yes, he is. We're very proud of him. Yes.
What kind of dog is he?
So he is a white German Shepherd. He is. They're very rare. They are quite rare.
And he's 12 years old, I can't believe it.
Next month's 12
years old.
You're both invited to his birthday party if you'd like to come.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, this dog is a bit sport, isn't he?
Well, he had
Yes.
easy paper around.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
Now, he sleeps on your bed.
He does, yes.
Yeah.
Sleeps between us, actually.
Must be a big bed, because he's a big lad.
He is. Well, we've had to go Super King.
Picture here, then, Debbie. Is
that was with the Chelsea pensioners. No, that was yesterday. These are people that he met.
This is all yesterday?
Some of these are yesterday, he was there with the Chelsea pensioners. He was on the Mall, up and down yesterday.
And is he very good with the veterans?
Oh, he loves them.
Oh, he loves them.
Yeah. So I go into care homes and he goes to care homes to meet veterans and things like that.
What a lovely thing.
His favourite was an old Land Army girl, but yeah, she's not here anymore, is she? No, she's not here. Yeah. I think he does understand more than we think. But these veteran weekends are brilliant, and the children get a chance to reenact and to see what goes on, and they put 40 shows on, and then on the Sunday there's always a massive church service, and he goes and sits at the church. He goes to church services. He's quite.
It's quite surreal, really, because on these reenactments there's German paratroopers, there's British soldiers. When you go for a drink or a bite, it's a real mishmash of people.
Yeah. GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo, but with me, Angela Rippon, for this weekend. Now, yesterday, the Youth Festival celebrating the Welsh language and culture, which is known as the National Eisteddfod, came to an end. Now, arguably, it is Europe's largest youth festival, and it is usually held during the last week of May, and it consists of competitive singing, recitation, art, composition, dance, and instrumental events for contestants for young people who are aged between 7 and 24 years of age. Now, what's the history behind this festival and all of the other Eisteddfods that they have in Wales, and indeed behind Welsh culture and language? Well, historian Martin Whittock joins me in the studio now. Martin, the Welsh are known for their love of singing, but as we've just heard, the whole point of an Eisteddfod, it is much more than singing, isn't it?
Yes, indeed so. I mean, basically, the word Eisteddfod means sitting together, coming together. And the very, very first documented Eisteddfod is from 1176 in Cardigan under Prince Reef. And we know that this was a very important competition time of minstrels and bards, and awards were given by secular rulers and by princes in Wales to the best bards and the best minstrels. And this was very much part of Welsh oral culture. But it crashed and burned in the 1280s because the English conquered Wales in the 1280s. They'd attempted to do so ever since Henry II in the 12th century, who wanted to be overlord of the Welsh. The Welsh had pushed back under Lord Rees, and then under Llywelyn the Great, and then under Llywelyn ap Gruffydd. But in the 1280s, Edward I, also Hammer of the Scots, pushed into Wales, and in 1282, Llywelyn II was killed by the English. By 1283, the English are basically conquering Wales, and in 1284, Wales becomes part of the Principality of Wales, but under the English. So much so that in 1301, Edward I's son is proclaimed Prince of Wales, but of course he isn't Welsh. He'll become Edward II, and it's about English control. So this then continues through the Middle Ages with a big revolt in 1400 by Owain Glyndŵr. But basically, there's an attempt to anglicise Wales. But the Welsh language refuses to die. Welsh culture refuses to go away, despite the fact that Henry VIII passes some laws called the Laws in Wales Act in 1535 and 1542 to make English laws applicable in Wales. Wales doesn't die. Wales keeps going. The culture keeps fighting back.
I'm sitting here in awe of the fact that you could trot out all of those dates just like that and just know them. So thank you for the history lesson. But the point is that it manifests Welsh culture. That is the whole point, isn't it?
Yes.
To keep Welsh culture alive and to demonstrate how vibrant it is and how important it is to the country, but not just to Wales, internationally.
Absolutely right. In 1588, the Bible's translated into Welsh, same year as the Spanish Armada, and that's very, very important in defending Welsh culture and keeping it as a literary language. In the 18th century, there's a revival, a Celtic revival that flows into the 19th century. And strangely enough, a lot of it happens in London, with Welsh people living in London. So in the 18th century, we see this revival of the Eisteddfod movement, and we see the Gwrthseth of the Bards founded at Primrose Hill in London in 1792. And then in 1819, the Gwrthseth and the Eisteddfod come together in the big event that happened that year in Carmarthenshire. And then from 1861 onwards, we have the bardic celebration of poetry and people giving awards and so on. That's the Gwrthseth. Very much integral part of the Eisteddfod, and that's what we still have today. It's a celebration of Welsh culture. It's basically saying we're still here, we're not going away, despite the English conquest of the 13th century, and Wales is vibrant and the Welsh language is growing. And that's what the Eisteddfod is really about, celebrating and maintaining.
And the one we're talking about that finished yesterday, in fact, is the youth Eisteddfod. Yes. But actually, there are scores of Eisteddfods happening, aren't there, in Wales? I mean, there's sort of music and drama festivals, with the big one, the National Eisteddfod, happening, what, in August?
Yeah, that's right.
In
that's
August.
Right. First
But
week
that
August.
is it's not just a national, it's an international Eisteddfod, isn't it? It encourages singers, musicians, playwrights, speakers from all over the world.
Yes, the whole Eisteddfod movement is about sitting together and celebrating culture, and it's found right across the Welsh diaspora. You know, you'll find it wherever Welsh people have settled. A lot of Welsh people in South America, for example.
Yes, huge communities.
Exactly, and in Australia and elsewhere.
But it's not just for the Welsh, is it?
No, absolutely so. And what it's done is it's geared to celebrate Welsh culture, but invite people in to experience it. So what we've seen close this week is the youth event. We then move on to the big national event taking place at Wrexham in August. But this is an international event that brings people in from the whole Celtic diaspora, you know, all the way from, you know, Cape Breton to Brittany. People will be there from Ireland as well. But the point is, it's celebrating a Welsh culture, and it's It's a window on the world for Wales and its culture. And so even if people can't speak Welsh, it's an amazing way to experience Welsh culture and something of its history, and to learn a bit of Welsh, and just to soak up the ambience and bathe in that incredible, wonderful language. Welsh died out in my grandfather's generation. I'm Welsh on my mother's side, that's right, yes. But as I said earlier, my great-grandmother had a Welsh-speaking cat that if you said, get down, it wouldn't move. But you said, cut aloud, it would jump off. But that died basically in the 1930s in my generation. So my mother, who was born in Wales, Merthyr Valley, she couldn't speak or understand Welsh at all, but my grandfather could.
Yeah, but there are lots of, particularly in North Wales, lots of people who still speak the language. And in fact, many English people do get very cross when they walk into shops and people start speaking Welsh, don't they?
I guess we always have to remember you are in Wales, by the way, when that happens. Yeah, there's been a big revival of the Welsh language since the 1970s. We see it in state schools now. We see it with lots of people who are not necessarily Welsh by birth, but feeling they want to identify with Wales, learning Welsh. It's interesting, actually, that in the 12th century, Henry II was told by an old man there that on the Day of Judgment there'll be somebody speaking Welsh giving answer to God for this part of the world. Well, there are still people speaking Welsh answering for that part of the world. Wales is still with us. The Welsh language has not died out.
Well, we'll have to learn the Welsh for hello. What is it? Croeso?
Well, Crossbury Cymru is long live Cymru, basically.
Right.
You know.
I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Welcome to Cymru, actually.
I know you have never actually been to an Eisteddfod yourself, but you are a historian. You know about the background.
Yes.
Very, very briefly, because it is such an international competition, and it is a competition.
Yes.
Presumably, there are non-Welsh speakers and non-Welsh singers and who may win those. Presumably, it has produced some great names and some great artists over the years.
The key thing to remember is all the competition has to be in Welsh or have a very, very minimal input of any language other than Welsh. So although it's kind of a combination of a competition, which is very, very Welsh language focused, and a festival which celebrates all sorts of aspects of Welsh culture, where, again, as I say, you might find some of those stallholders will be kind to you if you try a bit of Welsh but have to lapse into a little bit of English. But we have to say that whilst it's open to non-Welsh speakers and it wants to celebrate them to come, it is there to basically showcase the Welsh language. Go, give it a try your Welsh, and overcome the problems that died in my family 2 generations ago. Wales is fighting back, and so is the Welsh language.
So are you going to go to the national one in August?
Sadly, it is my wife's aunt's 90th that week, and so we will be in Yorkshire, where I'll be having to learn another form of English.
Put it in your diary for next year.
for next year.
Martin, thank you so much for coming. And what's the Welsh for thank you?
I don't know. I thought I wasn't the Welsh speaker. People will be writing it even now saying, who was that charlatan?
Ask Granny's cat.
Yes.
They'll tell you. Martin, thank you very much indeed. Well, time is running out now on your chance to win our biggest Great British Getaway to date. It's your chance to drive away with a brand new motorhome. It's worth over £67,000, and here's all the details you'll need if you would like to win it.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet.
Driving away in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. It has plenty of room for your family of 4. Comes complete with kitchen, bathroom and all the space you'll need for life on the road. And the best news? You can drive it on your existing driving licence. Plus, we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Don't delay. You can't win if you're not in the draw. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This motorhome and £5,000 in cash really could be yours. Good luck.
Oh, there's lots more still to come on today's show, but first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Angela, thank you, and good afternoon to you. 31 minutes past midday. Britain has lost control of its borders. That is the warning from the Defence Secretary today after a record 1,194 migrants crossed the English Channel in a single day yesterday. Migrants, including children, were seen wading into the shallows on French beaches as police watched and later escorted the boats towards the UK. It brings the total so far this year to nearly 15,000. That is up 42% on this time last year. John Healey is blaming the previous Conservative government for the chaos in the asylum system and criticised French police for failing to intervene. The Home Office, though, says it will stop at nothing to dismantle the smugglers' business model. 2 people have died and nearly 560 arrests made after PSG's Champions League win sparked riots across France. A 17-year-old was sadly stabbed to death and a man in his 20s killed in a scooter crash during street celebrations. Police used tear gas and water cannons in Paris, where fireworks were hurled at officers and cars set alight. One officer is also in a coma after being struck by a firecracker, and there is more violence expected today as the team holds celebration parades. Britain is bracing for a new era of threat, with £1.5 billion set aside for 6 new weapons factories and munitions spending set to triple to £6 billion. Defence Secretary John Healey says it's a clear message to Moscow, warning the UK is already under cyber attack and that the keyboard has become a weapon of war, he says. A new cyber command will launch to counter daily assaults from hostile states like Russia and China. Long-range missiles and drones will also be built here in the UK, with 1,800 new jobs promised as part of Labour's defence overhaul. Well, let's take a listen now to what John Healey had to say to Camilla Tominey this morning.
The keyboard has become a weapon of war, and it's one of the reasons that in the last couple of days I've made the commitment that we'll put £1 billion into the digital upgrade of our armed forces so that we can link AI, autonomy and drones to the hard metal of tanks and artillery and planes. But also we'll establish a new cyber command to try and deal with these threats.
And the UK is throwing out disposable vapes, with a nationwide ban now enforced to curb youth addiction and to cut plastic waste. From today, shops and supermarkets can no longer sell single-use devices, as ministers warn nearly 5 million are binned every week. Refillable and rechargeable vapes are still allowed, though, but in England and Wales, breaking the rules could cost retailers a £200 fine. The government says it's a win for kids and the climate, but critics warn a ban could fuel a black market and say tougher action is still needed. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at the top of the hour. Now, though, it's a quick break, and then I will be right back with Angela.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's a showery start to meteorological summer, drier on Monday and then turning wet and windy later. So looking at the bigger picture, we have this area of low pressure situated towards the north, quite breezy as well, with a bit of a squeeze in the isobars and frontal systems moving through. So best of the fine and dry weather across the southeast today. Elsewhere, it is going to be a mixture of sunny spells, scattered showers, longer spells of rain clearing its way eastwards across Scotland, followed by further showers behind. Otherwise, breezy out there, but the strongest winds really confined to northwestern Scotland, so feeling cool here. Otherwise, highs of up to 20 to 22 in the southeast. Now, as we go through a Sunday evening, further showers. Some of these could be heavy, especially across north and eastern parts of Scotland, with longer spells of rain across the north and accompanied by some strong winds. Across Northern Ireland, a similar picture, some late evening spells of sunshine, but mixed with showers. Across much of England and Wales, though, largely fine and dry to end Sunday. Just a few showers around. So as we go through Sunday evening and overnight, we have some spells of rain across the north and west of Scotland, but with the ridge of higher pressure moving in, most of the showers will start easing, so turning a lot drier with lengthy clear skies as we go overnight and lighter winds. So it could turn chilly in some spots, especially across the north, where we could see a touch of frost, otherwise milder in the south. So as we start Monday, many places waking up to a fine and dry day. We'll see a few showers bubbling up, mostly across East Anglia, and then the sunshine turning hazy out towards the west, across Northern Ireland and Scotland, accompanied by a brisker wind before the area of low pressure arrives. So again, cooler here, but in the sunshine and lighter winds, feeling pleasant.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo, who actually is off on a jolly this weekend. So that's why you've got me, Angela Rippon. Now, 2 NHS health boards in Scotland have begun trialling the early direction of cancer and head of trauma using AI. They want to look at whether or not it really can detect those 2 cancers. So GB News reporter Tony Maguire has been finding out just how the NHS plans to keep tabs on this new technology.
2 of Glasgow's busiest health boards, NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde and NHS Lothian, are taking part in a £1 million project to evaluate the use of artificial intelligence in healthcare. It hopes to accelerate AI in Scottish hospitals to improve patient outcomes with faster diagnoses of lung cancer and strokes. Dr Mark Hall, consultant radiologist at Glasgow's Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, says it'll help redirect medical attention to the cases that need it most.
We've had patients in the past couple of weeks where we've had a CT scan done 1 or 2 days after the chest x-ray's been done, and they've started down that lung cancer pathway within 1 or 2 days of seeing the GP. Prior to this coming in, some of these patients were waiting 8 weeks to get that journey started. So AI really helps us reshuffle the pack and prioritise.
Artificial intelligence can't go unchecked, so evaluation company Aval oversees its application, ensuring global datasets remain consistent for use on British patients, and AI drift doesn't diminish its effectiveness. Aval founder and CEO Kanwal Bhatia says human lives are at stake, and AI can aid a heavily burdened NHS.
Our healthcare system is under strain. We have a shortage of radiologists globally, and so by testing these products fast but also thoroughly, we can help bring the benefits of AI to patients much quicker.
Depending on its application, the public is yet to render its verdict on the benefits of AI. But when it comes to better health, Glaswegians are largely on board.
If it makes things more efficient, I'm all for it. If it makes people healthier, I'm all for it.
Some extremes I do think it's okay, but in others, what are they doing with the details? Maybe AI's gone now, anybody will be able to log into them. So where's the privacy in it?
I think for like a health matter that's really good, really important, because they seem to be doing a lot more than what the science has been doing for a long time.
AI products take 9 months to validate, and with more than 200 available to a single hospital department, few trials provide real-world solutions. NHS Scotland hopes Aval's validation project opens the way, cutting costs and redistributing resources to save lives. Tony Maguire, GB News, Glasgow.
Well, that's a project that's happening in Scotland using AI. And just a few months ago, I was actually in the Midlands in England making a film about a local GP practice, which is using AI to cut down the number of people who don't turn up for doctor's appointments, something which is actually costing the NHS in England a huge amount of money. So we are seeing AI being used in more and more areas of our health industry. So Chief Executive of the Independent Pharmacies Association, Dr. Leila Handbeck, is joining me now. Leila, are you seeing that AI, which some people still are very suspicious of in certain areas, actually could have an important role to play in future diagnostic situations in the NHS?
Yes, definitely, Angela. I think not just diagnostics, but also prevention agenda, because it makes the system much more effective and, and getting quicker through the system, whilst our NHS is on its knees at the moment. But we just need to be a little bit careful in terms of not running before walking, because there's still loads of stuff within the NHS IT system that needs a lot of work. For example, systems within doctors and pharmacies and dentists, talking to each other, which needs still a lot of work to make it functional. But AI definitely can make the process is much more effective when it comes to prevention, diagnosis, and make things quicker, really, for patients.
And I think perhaps for many people that will be the selling point, as it were, that it is so much quicker, even though we don't ever want to lose that, as you say, that communication between departments, that human communication.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are loads of potential there in terms of what AI can do. So I think the fact that they are investing in it is a good step forward. So let's see more of this now.
I want to talk to you about vaping because, as we know, as from today, it is illegal for the sale, for people to be able to buy those disposable vapes. And, I mean, the figures that are associated with it are extraordinary. 5 million of them a week are just being thrown away. We were talking earlier in the programme about the way in which the oceans are now full of plastic, and I'm sure that vapes are, these days, contributing to that to quite an extent. Now, how do you feel and how do pharmacists feel about this? Because clearly, there are still a lot of them out there on the shelves in stores where you have the disposable ones. Lots and lots of shops still have them, and but now, if you sell them, it is actually going to be, what, a £200 fine minimum. I think it goes up to about 5,000. There's even the possibility of going to jail if you sell them. How do pharmacies and you, as your association, feel about this?
Well, I think it's a step in the right direction. It is incredibly concerning when you hear reports of young children and teenagers using these products, disposable products. And it looks like these products are made, the marketing of these products, the colors, the taste and all of that, are made to attract younger people. Now, vaping can be an effective way for smokers to give up smoking. So there is a place for them, and it's better than smoking. However, non-smokers and children should not be going nowhere near this. And so this is a step in the right direction. However, more needs to be done to regulate these products, Angela.
More to regulate them. Well, hopefully after today, when I think we get a clearer idea of the effect that this ban is going to have on not only the people who are selling them, but also the people who are using them, that we will see that regulation coming in. Leila Handbeck, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Thank you. Coming up, tomorrow sees the start of British Tomato Fortnight. Now, we're going to be championing great British growers and indeed some of the recipes that you can use that showcase tomatoes in all their juicy glory. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, well, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Be nice to escape the grey.
Clear skies, here we come.
As clear as our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, there's plenty of hot sunshine across most of the Mediterranean, but there are some thunderstorms in places, particularly in southern France. Across the Canary Islands and Madeira, though, there'll be this brisk northerly flow on Monday, bringing in quite a bit of cloud, but sunshine for southern parts of Spain. Here are those thunderstorms across the Alps, southern parts of France, but most of Italy, the Balkans and Greece and Turkey having plenty of hot sunshine and temperatures into the high 20s, and the outlook is for plenty more dry and settled weather.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns this Tuesday from 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
A monumental breakthrough. Scientists have revealed that they've found strong evidence of alien life. Just 124 light years away.
Which is quite far, isn't it? Astronomers from Cambridge University have detected signs of molecules that do indicate life, so we may not be alone after all.
Well, joining us now to explain what on earth this exciting story is, the astronomer and broadcaster Mark Thompson joins us. Mark, just how important is this discovery?
Well, it's incredibly important. For so many years now, we've been looking for some signs that we're not alone in the universe. The universe is a massive place. It's often been said that there's more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on Earth. So, it's a big place. And to think that we're the only intelligent species in the entire cosmos is difficult to understand. And the discovery that's just been announced is that there's something called dimethyl sulfide, which is an element made of hydrogen, carbon and sulfur, which at the moment we think the only possible way that could be there is through some form of primitive living organisms.
So this is because it's a very complicated gas to sort of combine together. There's no way there could be some sort of volcano churning this stuff out. It has to be some sort of biological life form as the most likely explanation.
Yeah, absolutely. There are other elements, but this particular element, dimethyl sulfide, at the moment, the only process we know of that can produce it is life. Now, of course, still in early stages of this discovery, and we still need to do a lot of work to see if there's any other processes we can identify that can produce it. But for now, the only thing we know of is life, and so the only explanation, therefore, is that it's life. But it is still early days.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Well, tomorrow marks the start of British Tomato Fortnight, which is why I've got a whole load of them here in the studio, and lovely they are too. It's an opportunity to celebrate British growers and promote recipes that showcase the humble tomato in all of its glory. Now, the 2 weeks marks the peak in the tomato growing season here in Britain, and with me now is the chairman of British Tomatoes, Simon Conway. What a wonderful title to have. I'm chairman of British Tomatoes.
Lovely to be invited.
We've got a pile of them here in the studio, which we'll take a look at in a moment. Why do we need a fortnight to celebrate British tomatoes?
We always time British Tomato Fortnight with the peak of the season. So we've had a fantastic spring this year. It's been really sunny, really brought the crop on. And these 2 weeks, British tomatoes are available 52 weeks of the year, but the peak really is from now until the end of sort of October time. So it's really kickstart consumers getting in and buying British, choosing British.
OK. Why should we buy British? I mean, I looked up online. What are the top tomato growing areas in the world? And the top 6 tomatoes came out as all being Italian, not British.
Yeah, well, and I mean, lots of tomato production in Morocco and southern Spain, and we eat about 500,000 tonnes of tomatoes a year as the British public, so that's a lot. As British growers, we supply about 20% of that, so we're relatively small. But why you choose British is because of flavour. We can grow tomatoes that taste superb. The tomatoes that are grown in, say, Morocco or Spain are grown for shelf life, for travel.
Are we really saying then that I'm going to be a bit rude to British tomatoes here, because I can remember going back buying Greek tomatoes, having big luscious tomatoes like these big ones with nothing more than just some wonderful crispy bread and the flavour being wonderful. And there's always the criticism that British tomatoes very often don't actually have that flavour. Are you saying we've overcome that?
Oh, we have, and it's variety driven. Some of these new varieties are fantastic.
So what have we got here, for instance? What's that?
That's a beef tomato. So that'll be grown again for flavour. If you buy a beef tomato, say that's from Holland, it'll tend to have grown just for yield. So it'll taste fairly bland.
OK, let's take a look at some of that. We've also got these, which are this sort of unusual shape.
Yeah, so that's a San Marzano type. So that's an Italian variety that's grown in Italy, but our growers have found a way to grow that and going to get that peak flavour. It's a fantastic variety, that.
And we've also got lots of sort of little tomatoes here on the vine. Now, it's become quite fashionable to buy tomatoes on the vine. Does it make a different flavour or not?
Well, yes, it does. Longer on the vine gets the sweetness up. So the sugar levels in those is fantastic, really high, probably the sweetest tomatoes you can buy. And what they've been doing as well for the yellow types, which are the again on the vine, trying to breed varieties that generate the sugar levels on the yellow ones as well. And that's been challenging, but we're getting some really good varieties now. A lot of mixed packs. When you go in a supermarket, you'll see this mixture of red, green, some green tomatoes you've got there. Even some of the green have got a surprising flavour. So it's bad at theatre and making sure the offer is really attractive to the consumer.
So we shouldn't just buy British to be patriotic. We should actually buy them because they have a better flavour than a lot of the foreign ones.
Yeah, it's flavour.
Let's talk recipes then, because I didn't realise this, but apparently the nation that eats more tomatoes than anybody else are the Chinese. And the favourite Chinese recipe is chopped tomatoes and scrambled eggs. Very simply and they serve it as a main course, apparently. Scramble the eggs, then chop up the tomatoes, fry them, put them together, and apparently that is a favourite dish in China. Who would have known? You'd have thought that their own cuisine was enough not to need that. But there are some wonderful recipes. Not just tomato soup. Off the top of your head, give us a decent recipe.
Well, I always prefer to have them almost as natural as you can, and the classic of balsamic vinegar, olive oil, sliced with this mozzarella. Absolutely, it's classic. But I mean, a lot of these sweet varieties.
Can I just say, or even without the mozzarella, chopped some kind of chopped vegetable on top of it makes them gives them a real lovely flavour. Mint, particularly.
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
And another one.
And the very sweet on the vine varieties, get under a grill very quickly or griddle them. Again, that brings out that sweetness, and they're a perfect accompaniment with fish. I always like a nice cod dish with some creme fraiche and then some cherry tomatoes grilled. Beautiful.
Mouth-watering already. Thank you very much indeed, Simon, the spokesman for the best of British tomatoes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much,
Thank you. Thanks to all my guests, actually, who've been with me today, and it's been really a pleasure to have your company this Sunday. Michael will be back next week, but next up here on GB News is Dawn Newsom with The Weekend. Dawn, what's coming up on your show?
From the streets of Paris, where we're talking to someone who was an eyewitness to that horrific violence last night. We've also got a great exclusive of a witch who was cancelled for, well, you won't believe what she was cancelled for. All that after the weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon and welcome to a GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got a few showers through the rest of today, but it's going to be drier on Monday before turning wet and windy later on. So having a look at the bigger picture, we've got low pressure situated towards the north, but out towards the west, a ridge of high pressure helping to settle things down as we go through Monday. So through the rest of this afternoon and evening time, any showers gradually fading away. There'll be a few still persisting across Scotland and perhaps northwestern parts parts of Wales, but otherwise many places seeing lengthy clear skies. You may even see the aurora tonight across Scotland. Feeling chilly in the north with lighter winds, may see a touch of frost, but otherwise milder in the south, lows of 10 to 11. So as we start Monday morning then, many places are seeing fine and settled conditions. Best of the sunshine across Scotland is going to be across eastern areas, with a few showers still out towards the west, but with lighter winds. Across Northern Ireland, plenty of sunny spells to start the morning. A few showers around across parts of Northern England and Wales, but we'll need to focus our attention to East Anglia as we go through the afternoon. That's where we'll more likely see showers developing. So as we go through Monday afternoon then, some showers will bubble up across East Anglia, but many places out towards the west are fine and dry. Across Northern Ireland and Scotland, sunshine will be turning increasingly hazy, with the winds picking up ahead of the next area of low pressure. So feeling cooler here, especially in that wind, but in the sunshine and lighter winds across the southeast, highs are reaching up to 21 or 22 degrees. So as we go through Monday evening, turning increasingly wet